What did she cut you with?
A knife. I'm pregnant. She got me in my stomach.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
She cut you in your stomach?
I'm pregnant.
Okay.
It was March 18, 2015, when emergency dispatchers in Longmont, Colorado, received a chilling call from 1620 Green Place. The caller was 26-year-old Michelle Wilkins, crying in pain, struggling to speak. She kept repeating that she was pregnant and her attacker had cut her stomach.
Can you grab a towel or anything you can get in your hands and put it on your wound and press? How far along are you?
7 months.
7 months? Okay. Are you alone in the house?
No.
You stay with me. Don't go to sleep. You stay with me. You're downstairs in the basement? And are you alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I locked the door.
Thank you. Michelle, don't you go to sleep, okay? You stay on the phone with me.
The 911 dispatcher's heart sank as she listened to Michelle's shaky voice. She asked Michelle to stay awake and keep talking while help was on the way. Michelle struggled to explain what happened.
Can you tell me, did she have any other weapons besides a knife?
She broke a glass.
She broke a glass? Did she stab you with the broken glass also?
Yeah.
Okay. Michelle, you need to think real hard and tell me who it is that did this. Tell me the person's name. Think real hard, okay? Don't go to sleep. Stay with me. Tell me who it is.
She mentioned a broken glass, saying her attacker might have used it, but every word seemed to take an enormous effort.
Do you have a towel on that?
How long?
They're on their way, okay? I need you to take a towel and put it on your wound. How many wounds do you have?
No. She just lost.
More than one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Are they in the house yet? She's downstairs?
Yeah, they're here.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Finally, emergency crews reached the house. They're here. Michelle gasped in relief before the line went dead. Inside, responders were met with a grisly sight. A trail of blood led from the bedroom to the utility room, and in the basement, they found Michelle lying on a blood-soaked bed. Nearby, a small knife with a 3-inch blade lay on the floor. Blood covered Michelle's clothes, but something didn't add up. She said she was 7 months pregnant, but her stomach was flat. What was going on? Was she really pregnant, or was she lying? Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated. What followed was a disturbing and twisted story. Viewer discretion is advised. At first, some officer thought Michelle Wilkins might be the attacker, not the victim. Maybe she had lost the fight somehow. But her wounds proved she wasn't faking anything. Her intestines were exposed, and she was bleeding heavily. Michelle was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Even as Michelle fought for her life, officers were left with burning questions. If she wasn't pregnant, why had she said she was? As the investigation began, police discovered that the house wasn't Michelle's. It belonged to David Ridley and his wife, Dinelle Lane, who lived there with their 2 daughters. This only deepened the mystery. What was Michelle doing in their basement? And where were the homeowners? Soon, officers learned that Dinelle Lane had also been admitted to the hospital. But her situation was just as bizarre, and far more horrifying. Dinelle had arrived at the hospital drenched in blood, holding a baby in her arms. She was hysterical, screaming, "Please save him, I don't matter, just save my baby." Hospital staff described it as one of the most disturbing scenes they had ever witnessed. Dinelle said she had given birth prematurely and insisted on saving the baby. Investigators quickly learned that Dinelle was also pregnant, and her husband David was devastated for losing their baby. When questioned, David explained what had happened earlier that day. Around 2:04 p.m., Dinelle called him, asking him to stop by their daughter's school for some paperwork. He agreed, planning to return home afterward so they could go to her prenatal appointment. He got back around 2:15 p.m. but was met with a horrifying scene. Dinah was in the basement, covered in blood. There were no signs of forced entry, but she told him she had just miscarried. In a panic, David rushed her and the baby to the hospital, completely unaware that there was a strange woman lying injured in his basement. So how did Michelle end up in their home, and why didn't David know anything about her? The only person who could provide the answers was Dinah Lane. At first, Dinah Lane claimed she had no idea what had happened, saying, "There was no girl at my house." She insisted she had been alone all day, preparing for her doctor's appointment. But when detectives pressed her, she started changing her story. Eventually, Dinah admitted that she had posted an ad on Craigslist offering free maternity clothes. Michelle had responded and Dinah invited her over. Everything seemed normal. They chatted for about an hour, and when Michelle was about to leave, Dinah remembered she had some baby girl clothes that she didn't need. Since Dinah was expecting a boy, she offered them to Michelle and led her to the basement. Then, according to Dinah, Michelle suddenly attacked her. Dinah claimed that Michelle grabbed a knife and tried to stab her, but she fought back in self-defense.
She kept trying to punch me, and she was like trying to bite me.
Did she get a punch on you or bite you?
She hit me a couple times on the side, but I mean, like...
Glancing.
But, like, it wasn't, like, direct. It was just, like...
A glancing blow.
I think I choked her. Okay. And once you choked her, what happened? She was still trying to hit me, and she was biting at me. And I don't even know, it was a struggle. It was a big struggle. And I was yelling. I was trying to maybe get my neighbors to hear me. And I was trying to grab for her phone. But she, I think, had a lock on it. I'm not sure.
During the struggle, Dinah said she managed to knock Michelle unconscious. Believing Michelle was dead, she panicked and tried to save the baby.
I thought I killed her, and I didn't want the baby to die too. What happened? When she stopped moving, I started thinking I didn't want the baby to die too, so I got the knife that she had. And I tried to get the baby out.
Dinah cut open Michelle's abdomen, claiming, "I didn't want the baby to die too. I didn't know what else to do." But her story didn't add up. If she was so concerned about the baby, why hadn't she called 911? And why did she change her story multiple times? Initially, she claimed the baby was hers, insisting that DNA tests would confirm it. But when she learned Michelle had survived, she admitted to the attack, claiming it was self-defense. Then came the final, chilling revelation. Dr. Leslie Armstrong confirmed that despite Dinah's insistence on saving the baby, there were no signs she had been pregnant. These left investigators stunned. Why would someone fake a pregnancy for so long, even fooling their own husband? As detectives dug deeper into Dinah's past, they realized this case was far more twisted than anyone had imagined. Dinah's pregnancy seemed completely normal at first, with nothing appearing out of place. This was her second marriage. She already had 2 teenage daughters from her first husband, and David Ridley had a daughter of his own. When they found out they were expecting a baby boy, the couple couldn't have been happier. Their joy was shared by family and friends, who even threw them a baby shower where they revealed the baby's name, James. Dinah frequently posted pictures of her growing baby bump and ultrasound scans on social media, making everyone believe their little family was about to grow. But one of David's friends sensed something was wrong. She doubted Dinah's pregnancy has been sketchy. Is it considered child endangerment? And even suggested that Dinah might harm someone. When investigators learned the reasons behind these suspicions, they were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew. It turned out Dinah's behavior during the supposed pregnancy had been strange for months. She first announced her pregnancy in April 2014, but David had never once attended a doctor's appointment with her. Every time they planned to go together, something would come up. Dinah suddenly wasn't feeling well, or they'd leave the hospital after waiting for hours without seeing a doctor. Despite this, David never pushed too hard for proof, trusting what Dinah told him. But there was something that simply didn't add up. Dinah had been claiming to be pregnant for nearly 12 months. Her due date kept shifting. First, it was supposed to be November 2014, then December, and finally March 2015. Still, there was no baby. Whenever family or friends asked about the pregnancy, Dinah would become defensive, often lashing out and refusing to answer questions. As time passed, suspicions grew. Everything pointed to one unsettling conclusion. Dinah had been lying about her pregnancy for over a year. To understand the full story, police began investigating Dinah's personal life and her marriage to David. What they found painted a very different picture of their supposedly happy relationship. Behind closed doors, things were falling apart. Since it was Dinah's second marriage, detectives also looked into her first. She had previously been married to a man named Jason Cruz. Their marriage lasted 12 years, during which they had 3 children. 2 daughters and a son named Michael Alexander Cruz, affectionately called Little Mac by the family. But tragedy struck in 2000 when Michael, just 19 months old, drowned in a neighbor's pond. His death was ruled a tragic accident, with no signs of foul play. Losing her youngest child devastated Dinah. Overwhelmed by grief, she and Jason decided that they didn't want any more children, and Dinah underwent a hysterectomy. But this wasn't the only trauma she endured during her first marriage. Jason had been abusive. He was once charged with third-degree domestic violence for slamming Dinah's head into a car. However, the charges were dropped when Dinah chose not to pursue the case further. After separating from Jason in 2007, Dinah tried to move on with her life. In 2010, she responded to a Craigslist ad from a man named Robert Walsh, who was looking for a roommate. Robert agreed to let her move in with her 2 daughters, as he also had a daughter of his own. Initially, everything seemed fine. Dinah came across as kind and soft-spoken. Between 2010 and 2012, she worked as a nursing aide, holding a valid license in the field. But it didn't take long for Robert to notice something was off. One day, Dinah told him she had been suspended from her job, but he later found out that she had actually been fired. Things took another turn when Dinah was arrested for failing to appear in court for a traffic violation. Robert had to bail her out, but soon after, their arrangement as roommates ended, and they went their separate ways. Fast forward a few years, and Dinah met David. They got married, and soon she claimed to be pregnant with his child. At first, David believed her. But as time went on and her pregnancy dragged beyond normal limits, doubt started creeping in. Friends and family began questioning her story, and David eventually had enough. He confronted Dinah, demanding proof of her pregnancy. If she couldn't provide it, he told her she and her daughters would have to move out. Reluctantly, Dinah agreed. They planned to go to the hospital together for a checkup, the very same day the horrific incident occurred. Things were finally beginning to make sense. Detectives now had a clearer picture. Dinah had fabricated her pregnancy to keep her marriage intact. But when she was cornered and faced the risk of being exposed, she took drastic, unimaginable action. By this time, Michelle Wilkins had regained consciousness and was ready to share shocking revelations that would answer all questions of the investigators. She explained that she and her boyfriend had discovered her pregnancy 7 months before the incident. They were expecting a baby girl and decided to name her Aurora. Michelle had been searching for maternity clothes online, which is how she came across an ad on Craigslist. It was posted by Dinah Lane, offering free maternity clothes. Michelle explained, "I was using Craigslist a lot during my pregnancy. I'd found most of what I needed for Aurora, but I was still looking for a crib. That's when I stumbled upon an ad in the free section for maternity clothes." On the morning of March 18th, Michelle arrived at Dinah's house around 11:51 a.m. She was greeted by a seemingly friendly woman. She even held her stomach like she was pregnant, Michelle remembered. They went upstairs, and Dinah showed her various maternity clothes, helping her pack what she needed. Just as Michelle was about to leave, Dinah kept talking. Michelle recalled she talked about her 2 teenage daughters who didn't want to hang out with her anymore, and how her partner was always at work. She seemed lonely. They ended up chatting for about an hour. When Michelle finally reached for the door to leave, Dinah stopped her, saying, "Oh, I might have one more thing downstairs. Do you want to come take a look?" Michelle agreed, and they went to the basement. She was frantically looking for something in one of the rooms, and I just had this feeling, time to leave, Michelle recounted. She started to head for the stairs, but before she could reach them, Dinah struck her from behind. At first, I thought maybe I had a spider on me, but then she said, "Yeah, I think I got it."
She just used her hands, kept hitting me, and tried to trip me.
And at some point, did she use a bottle or something?
She did. What happened, I just remember I kept asking her why she was doing that. I just kept saying, why are you doing this? And I just remember this one point where I was just holding my hand over my head, and I just said, "I don't know why you're doing this. I love you." And she broke the bottle over my head. I think actually what happened was she grabbed this bottle first from in front of the window, which the way it was floating, I thought it was like oil and vinegar. It was, I don't know, and she picked it up and she smashed it over my head, and that's when I held up my hand. I said, "I don't know why you're doing this. I love you." And she said, "If you love me, you'll let me do this." And then she stabbed it into my neck.
As Dinah stabbed Michelle with a broken bottle, she said, "If you love me, you'll let me do this." The word sent chills down Michelle's spine. She thought, I have so many angels and spirits on my side. How is this how I die? Then lost consciousness. Miraculously, Michelle woke up, barely alive.
That I just felt the blood seeping through my pants, and I could feel my intestines outside of my body.
Somehow, Michelle managed to call 911. Although she fought for her life and survived, her baby girl Aurora tragically did not make it. Michelle said in tears, "I remember being in the hospital, and before they even took out all the tubes, I asked with my eyes, 'What happened to Aurora?' That's when I learned she didn't make it. I went into a full-blown panic." 2 days after the attack, Michelle was able to hold and dress Aurora for the first and last time. She said, "I did everything a mom would want to do. I sang to her, read to her, and dressed her. But not being able to see her first smile or even know what her eyes looked like was the hardest part." During her recovery, the 911 dispatcher who had taken Michelle's call visited her in the hospital, a rare occurrence for someone in her position. She said, "I've never done that before. But that day, after my shift, I went to the ICU. I couldn't believe she was alive. I told her, 'It was you who saved yourself. If you hadn't remembered that address, if you hadn't stayed awake, you wouldn't have made it.'" Doctors later revealed that Michelle's injuries were precise and methodical, cuts that only someone with medical training could make. This discovery, combined with Michelle's testimony, painted a grim picture of what had truly happened. Dinah, who once held a nursing license, had carefully planned the attack. When her husband grew suspicious of her prolonged pregnancy and demanded proof, Dinah became desperate. She invited Michelle over, lured her into the basement, and carried out the horrific act, believing she could get away with it. After attacking Michelle and thinking she was dead, Dinah cleaned up the scene, changed clothes, and tried to act normal until David returned home. But Michelle survived, and her account brought everything to light. On the night of March 18, 2015, Dinah Lane was arrested. Dinah Lane's trial began on February 17, 2016. She pleaded not guilty to all charges, but the evidence and Michelle's powerful testimony proved otherwise. Despite the defense's argument that the attack wasn't premeditated, prosecutors demonstrated that Dinah knew exactly what she was doing. Throughout the trial, Dinah sat silently, showing little emotion, except when her initial false statements were played in court. On February 19, 2016, the jury found her guilty of first-degree attempted murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 4 counts of felony assault.
Ms. Lane planned this attack and left Ms. Wilkins to bleed out and die. Ms. Lane is to be sentenced to a sentence the court finds, having considered the mitigating circumstances and the aggravating circumstances, that totals 100 years in the Department of Corrections, to be followed by the mandatory periods of parole.
On April 29, 2016, Dynel was sentenced to 100 years in prison. She received 48 years for attempted murder, 32 years for unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and additional years for multiple assault charges, all to be served consecutively. Michelle survived the unthinkable, but her emotional recovery was far from over. Despite the unimaginable trauma she endured, her bravery and strength ensured that justice was served. Despite the horrifying loss of Michelle's unborn daughter, prosecutors did not file murder charges against Dynel. Legally, they lacked concrete evidence that the baby had lived outside the womb, with no signs of independent life. Therefore, Dynel was never charged for the death of Aurora, and the case was treated as a fetal demise rather than murder. During her impact statement, Michelle stood strong, holding a picture of Aurora. With raw emotion, she directly addressed Dynel, condemning her actions and the devastating ripple effect they caused. She said, "There were atrocities committed against me and my daughter that sent a ripple of pain to so many others. And they must be addressed. Those committed against Aurora's father, all of her grandparents, law enforcement, and first responders who cannot unsee the trauma you created. Even your partner and daughters must now live with guilt, shame, and trauma for the rest of their lives because of you. I did not learn until the trial just how many opportunities you had to do the right thing, yet you chose not to. You knowingly left me to die multiple times. The only tears you shed during the trial were those of self-pity, shed only when your lies unraveled. Even now, you refuse to come clean about what truly happened. You clung to your narcissistic fantasy, prioritizing your lie over my right to live and Aurora's right to live." This is a picture of her. In July 2020, Dynel tried to appeal her conviction, but the Colorado Court of Appeals rejected her arguments and upheld the original verdict. With Dynel behind bars, Michelle began a new chapter in her life, finding relief in knowing that Dynel could never harm anyone again. Michelle said, "There was a sense of relief knowing she would be somewhere she couldn't hurt others." Remarkably, Michelle found the strength to forgive Dynel, choosing to focus on her own healing rather than harbor hate. "No, I do not hate Dynel, but I am angry for all the pain she caused, for her deceit and selfishness, which I can barely fathom." Grateful to those who saved her life, Michelle took time to personally thank the 911 dispatcher and the first responders who had rushed to her aid, even bringing them cookies during a visit. They were overjoyed to see her alive, healthy, and smiling again. Michelle found solace and healing through pottery and has since become a therapist, helping others cope with mental health struggles. Though she continues to mourn the loss of her beloved Aurora, she remains hopeful that she may one day conceive again, longing for the chance to welcome another child into her life. In her words, "By God's grace, I remain hopeful." What do you think about this tragic case? How could a mother commit such a heinous act against another mother? What do you believe was going through Dynel's mind when she plotted this crime? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found today's story compelling, please consider exploring our channel for more fascinating true crime content. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on our latest videos. Have a case you'd like us to cover? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.